I'm very, very excited to have my friends on the podcast today. This podcast will be AI heavy, AI focused, and AI themed. Before we get into everything, okay, I want to set some guidelines, some boundaries, just like a structure for us to follow. Starting with how can we define AI? What is AI? Because when I think of AI, I just think of ChatGPT, Copilot, basically just like something where you ask it a question and it types out a response. So can someone here give me like a little bit more as to what AI is?
Yeah,
You can.
I can start off. So I think there's a lot of different ways to approach what AI is, but I think to boil it down, it's just artificial intelligence, which is just humans trying to develop a new form of intelligence to assist us in our day-to-day lives through computer science and code. And so what AI basically is you get a large sum of data and you feed it to a set of algorithms. And typically this is to accomplish a certain task, but more and more we see big tech companies looking to create an AI for everything, a daily assistant to help you with whatever you might need in whatever context. And so that's what I think AI is.
A bit. When someone like me, when all of us, when society goes into ChatGPT and they ask it a question and ChatGPT gives a response, where's that information coming from? Where's the answer coming from?
Yeah, so basically what a lot of these large language models do is they utilize the training data, which, whatever company or engineers developed it, to kind of piece together based off what it's seen in the past through, text that it was trained on to best answer your question. So there is no thinking, there is no, cognitive computation of any sort that's happening behind the scenes.
What is the training data?
What is the training data? So that kind of varies on what we're talking about here.
Let's just use ChatGPT.
I know that when ChatGPT, at least the earlier models, was first developed, it was based off of a closed training data set. And so what that means is there's probably a team at OpenAI that had to agglomerate a ton of data, but it wasn't anything public. So they wouldn't use the whole internet to train the data. It would rather be maybe certain articles from certain places. And this is actually where a lot of ethical concerns for the development of AI, not just large language models, comes into play. Is that training data decides what the AI will behave like.
Okay.
That is all it's known, and that's all it'll ever know, at least for a lot of these earlier models. And so there is a lot of concern, and I'm sure the film industry probably experiences a lot of this, is because it deals with a lot of different demographics that want to be portrayed in an accurate manner. And so making sure that whatever AIs are used do account for all racial groups, ethnic groups, socioeconomic groups, etc., and are portrayed in the best way they possibly can be. And so training data is a very important part of the development of AI and what it knows and what it's able to output to you when you do interact with it.
So I know you mentioned ethical concerns. If you guys just had to give like a 30-second just opinion, what are the biggest ethical concerns that we're facing with AI right now?
Yeah, I think Adam could take it, start off with an answer here, because I kind of briefly touched upon what that could look like, is just making sure that there is a variety of training data and that all people are represented within this training data in an accurate manner.
Adam, what do you think the biggest ethical concerns are with AI, especially in 2025 and moving forward?
Well, to start, I think it's a little more deeper and simpler than ethical concerns. I think the biggest issue is how do we use it?
Okay.
Because I think, like I mentioned before, the natural response whenever we get a tool that's useful is we want it to do it for us. It's convenient. We like things that are convenient. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think in the end, we need to know how to use this tool before we rely on it so much. And my biggest philosophy with tools is you always need to have it as an assistant, not as your boss. Because in the end, like you've said, AI and ChatGPT, they're language models, they learn. So you as a boss need to know what you want. Just like with any team or any project you lead, you have all these people, resources at your expense to execute your vision. But they're not going to know how to do that if you as the project leader or a boss or whatever don't know what you want.
Mm-hmm. So you're basically saying AI should just be a tool in your pocket, not the thing that's running your day-to-day life, and especially not running your whole mindset and frame on life.
Absolutely.
Eves, what do you think are the biggest ethical concerns with AI? Do you feel like it's maybe in the weaponry industry, militarily, academically? What are just some ethical concerns that people should be aware of?
Yeah. I think depending on the context, that kind of dictates how I could approach this question. But I think, especially as students, we can all agree that within the academic industry, it is very much important to adopt the philosophy that Adam touched upon, which is that at the end of the day, you are the human. You are the one that is able to think. AI is not yet sentient. It is not able to do that yet. And thus, you need to be able to understand at what line am I going to draw in terms of how often I'm going to use this tool and in the manner in which I'm going to use this tool. I think there are more serious implications of AI, especially in the near future, since defense companies tend to have the more advanced versions of this technology. I think it's very important to understand in their shoes that this technology is very powerful and it can deal a great amount of damage to people. And so understanding that everyone should have access to this technology. There shouldn't be any, I mean, inevitably there will be, but in an ideal world, we don't want to have any governments gatekeeping as much as, or companies gatekeeping. The original goal, actually, now that ChatGPT is kind of the big name and spotlight in AI, is that the term OpenAI, after the parent company of ChatGPT, came from this idea that they want AI to be for everyone. Mm-hmm. They want there to be a very clear, and quite literally transparent, guard in front of themselves and the consumers that they're serving. And I think that this is important because although OpenAI may not be adopting this philosophy and exemplifying it as much as we'd like to see, this is what their roots are. And I think other companies should do what they can to kind of continue on that legacy and making sure that AI is open. Everyone understands it, everyone knows how to use it, and has access to it, most importantly.
So I do have a question, or a point I want to challenge a little bit. So I think with it being accessible to everyone, I think that is great. But I think with that, with capability we've seen with AI, if it were to be heavily accessible to everyone, there should be some strict regulations.
You think so?
100%.
Y'all think there should be regulations?
Especially nowadays with AI, with the more prominent it's becoming, AI has been a significant tool of deception also.
I agree.
There's a lot of things in the world of politics, the world of social media, especially with us as Middle Easterns, with certain things going on around the world that we are very passionate about. I think a lot of times in many different angles and aspects, AI has been used to fabricate an agenda for any angle.
Why don't we shift to a more positive atmosphere? And I like what y'all said. Those are definitely 100% real concerns.
In the end, it's positive, but like with anything, anything can be used for good,
and it can be used for bad.
And I think, as much as the overall topic, yes, we want to shine AI's advantages, it's important that people are aware of the damage it can do.
Yeah.
I don't think I don't think we want to shy away and avoid the topic either, because in the end, this is a problem people face, regardless.
Yeah. So Eves mentioned that we're all students here. What are some ways that you guys, as students, have used AI, not to cheat, not to plagiarize, but just to, just make your life as students just a little bit easier?
As a writer, AI has helped me proofread a lot of papers.
So proofreading, okay.
Eves, you said you're in computer science?
Computer science?
Yeah,
and that's what a lot of the work I've done but I'm an engineering background. But I feel like in this day and age, a lot of engineers are kind of inevitably having to have some experience within coding and AI and all this stuff.
Eves probably has a more diverse skill set with AI, at least from an academic standpoint. For me, being a communications major, I've just used it to help me proofread papers.
Okay.
Or, at least in my field, running my production company.
Have you used AI to help in the generation of ideas?
No, I've used it to help me expand on ideas.
Okay.
But in the end, I think especially with, film, the best films and the best stories are ones that come from the heart. Things that come from personal experience. And again, AI is good with facts. It researches things online. But because it's a computer, it's an artificial intelligence.
Yeah. It's artificial at the end of the day.
It lacks the human experience, the human emotion.
I see what you're saying.
So, so I wouldn't use it to generate ideas. I would use it to help me expand
Expand on that.
on the ideas that I already have.
I
And
really
how
like-
can
I really like
make
that.
it, and how can I make it in the most efficient, best way possible.
I really like that. So what you're saying is you're planting the seed, but AI just kind of helps you
Exactly.
nurture a little bit.
It's like I said before. If you know what you want, your people, your resources will be able to help you execute it. But in the end, it fundamentally comes from, what do I want? Do I know what I want?
Yeah. What about you, Yves? As an engineering student, I'm sure you have a ton of math classes, a ton of really technical classes. What are some ways that you or your classmates have been using AI to just kind of smooth out that process a little bit?
Yeah, so the earlier generations of ChatGPT weren't the best at math at all, but I am glad to say that currently ChatGPT is capable of at least explaining some of the lower level like calculus concepts. And so I know a lot of what my classmates do is, instead of having to venture off into office hours and spend time and all that sort of thing, you can just kind of sit at home behind your computer and have a mini lecture. You can ask it any question.
It's like a mini tutor.
It is like a mini tutor on demand,
actually.
and generally it's for free, or even if you want premium for the
It's
fairly
like
low cost of $20
$20
a month. So that's the most common use I can think of. Debugging, like we do a lot of coding within engineering, and so debugging is definitely helpful. But I think the most important thing, even from a technical standpoint, is that ChatGPT isn't able to create. And the most important thing I think in life, and what people pay money for, what's most in demand for a job, is the ability to create in case by case scenario, be able to actually dissect and improve upon whatever field you're working in. And so I think that human experience, in philosophy it's called qualia. Each person's personal experience is very much important, because that's where you're actually going to be able to contribute to humanity and actually provide value. AI only knows what's already out there. It isn't able to really create anything entirely novel, because intrinsically that's not that's not possible for it. And so I do think as a human it is very important for you to guide it and provide that seed. That seed contains all of the originality, the humanity, and the novelty that is important. And I feel like every field of human endeavor. So I think
I like what you said about that. Yeah, just kind of continuing off of that. That's now let's look at someone who's in a job. There's a quote that I saw online. That said, AI won't replace jobs, AI won't replace people. People who know how to use AI will replace people. Does that make sense?
100%, yeah.
So as someone who's working in a job, how can you use AI to your advantage?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I think number one, you should use it to answer basic questions. If you don't know how to do something, you can explain it to you in any way you'd like. But I think maybe, at least from an engineering perspective, what this would look like is being able to utilize ChatGPT in your projects. Knowing how to implement it, through an API is something that I know a lot of companies are starting to do. But I do think idea generation is a very common one. I usually go to ChatGPT with having some sort of idea of what I want to do, but it's not refined yet. And I've noticed
You have
that
the seed.
Exactly, I have the seed,
You have
and
the seed,
it does perfect, at least for my use cases, and being able to refine that email, that text, especially if it's that project idea, that pitch, especially if it's a more complex topic and it's something that I don't have a lot of experience with. That's where I feel like AI has been the most useful, but it really just depends on the job. I'm sure a physician's perspective is going to differ greatly from what a film creator's and director's perspective is going to look like. But I think
Or a finance guy.
Or a finance guy.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing is that you have the seed. You yourself have experience in that field. You know what you're doing, and you're letting the AI you're working together.
I think in the end, it's not people who know how to use AI or replace people. I think what it really comes down to is, as a boss, as an employer, whatever, you want the person
Who's
to
just
get
be
the
efficient.
to get the job done efficiently,
Properly.
properly and efficiently, kind of go hand in hand, cost effectively.
That's
Cost
cheap as possible.
effectively.
Yep.
Because in the end, as much as we don't like CEOs, in the end, we all like money. We like to maximize money and not spend it if we don't have to. So if I were looking at two guys, and I want them to make me a movie, I want to make my company money. Obviously, the more I spend, the more I have to worry about making back in return.
True.
So if I see someone who has two really, really good ideas, but one of them used AI, but at the end it's the same thing, but the usage of AI and the resource of AI is, it's more cost effective, I'll look more into it, given it doesn't cross any ethical lines.
Yeah.
which is something I am very big on,
Yeah.
especially with a tool like this.
Yeah.
Because we've had many cases in the film industry where AI has crossed many ethical lines and been the center of several controversies.
Yeah, yeah. I really like what you said about that. And it really shows how it's not about the AI specifically and it's not about the person specifically. It's just about, we just want to maximize efficiency. We just want to reduce costs, keep revenue up high, etc. That's basically the basis of any business.
And then we as humans have always been like that. Think about when technology, like, the smartphone was first created. Pretty sure a lot of our parents thought, this was like the worst thing to ever, be invented because of its addictive traits, which it does have. But smartphone proved to have a lot of benefits and advantages to our everyday lives.
Yeah.
AI is going to be the same thing.
I see.
It's a technology that is newly developed, still developing. People don't have the firmest understanding of.
Yeah.
And because there's a lack of understanding and it has many capabilities, it may instill a lot of fear.
Oh, for sure, for sure. So, Ebs, I kind of want to bring it back to, I saw some posts about LLMs, large language models, but I'm not really sure what that is. Could you help explain what is a large language model?
Yeah, so it's essentially just a type of AI that is meant to mimic human language and conversation. And so many of you have probably experienced this through ChatGPT. What essentially ChatGPT does is it is something that you can speak to, essentially mimicking what a human would do in terms of text. And that's really what the general premise of a large language model is. Obviously, there are certain nuances within different types of them, but that's the main thing, is that it's able to mimic language, and it's something that you can interact with via text, audio. I'm sure many of you probably have seen the feature through Premium, ChatGPT Premium, of being able to actually speak to ChatGPT and then it vocally responding to you. So any sort of way that you can mimic human language, I think that's what a large language model does, and it serves as an assistant.
Wait, so large language model, all it means is something that can just speak back to you?
Not entirely. I mean, there's the AI component of it, which is that it's able to improve upon itself, and it's able to kind of adapt on the fly. I don't know if many of you have tried this, but ChatGPT is able to memorize and remember things from previous conversations.
Oh, yeah,
I don't know
sure.
the limitations of this, but I think that is one of the main things that makes AI what it is that it's continuously able to improve, and it's able to recognize patterns, and it's able to kind of fill in that gap of performance, and that's what makes it so powerful. So yeah, but then large language models specifically are able to mimic the human language aspect of things.
Large language models are able to mimic the human aspect of things.
The human language.
The human language.
Yes, the human language aspect.
Okay.